Hello everybody, we are back with another Taurus Land video. This is going to be a deep dive on Taurus Land Paladin tank or Guardian tank. I posted a 9-ish minute, a little 10-minute video on Paladin tank, so you can basically just copy what I'm doing there. Here I'm going to basically explain everything in full detail with all the math behind it and explanations basically. So, if you haven't checked out the 10-minute one, and this one's way too long for you, just go ahead. It'll be in the description, and you can watch that one instead. If you are a math guy or girl, you really want to know the details, why you should be doing things, explanations, and being able to kind of craft for yourself, theory craft for yourself, this is the video for you. Now, you can go ahead and just like increase the playback speed on this video or whatever. That's totally fine as well. All right, we're going to cover three main things in this video. Number one, we're going to talk about gear. When we're talking about gear, we're also going to be talking about stats. So gear and stats are kind of combined. Then we're going to go over the talents in detail and the skills, when you should use certain skills, when you shouldn't. And then we're going to go over the Inscribe Stone and emblems. So first, let's talk about our gear and let's talk about our stats. There's a couple different types of stats. There's basic attributes, enhanced attributes, and then there's actually like kind of hidden attributes, I'm going to call them, that do have a lot of effect on certain things, such as glancing effect, for example, or, you know, for like a DPS class, it's going to be crit damage. Things like this are kind of like hidden stats, I guess. All right, so as I mentioned in the 10-minute guide, the number one most important stat that you can possibly have as your tank paladin is to reach the resilience threshold. Resilience is an up to standard attribute, meaning you need to hit a certain number to be up to standard. Now, if you go to raid, even if we go to Monarch raid, Light Dragon, which is the hardest elite raid in the game, the boss requirement is 315. And you can see this is a threshold attributes. It is not like a recommended attribute. It's basically, if you don't have this, don't attempt the dungeon, or just know that you're gonna get hurt really bad. What resilience does is it basically reduces if you're at this threshold or above. It guarantees that the boss will not be critting you. If you are under this number, even if you are 314, or you have the chance of getting crit and getting literally one shot on the boss. All right, so get this number up to 315 immediately, as soon as possible. The best way to do that is going to be your gauntlets, your leather gauntlets, and your accessory can all roll 105 resilience. That's exactly what you're going to want on these pieces, is exactly 105. And believe it or not, that's going to hit 315. Now, when we get to epic difficulty, the resilience is going to go up to 630. It doubles, but it's completely different because we'll have 110 gear and higher level things like that. So just get it to 315 right now. Don't get it any above. Like, I know, you know, some people are looking at, they're like, epic, I need to get it to 630, right? So they have like, they're running around with like 450 resilience. It's a complete waste. There's absolutely no reason to overcap it ever. So once you have your resilience at 315 out of the way, the next biggest thing that you can do is get your glancing up as a tank paladin, is get your glancing up to 29.5% or above. Basically, you want to hit 29.5% exactly. The closer you are to hitting that, the better. But you're not going to do that. What's going to happen if you have, you know, proper rolls on all of your gear is you're going to have glancing numbers like this, 33.2, or it might even be 33.7. Whoops, or something along those lines. So you're going to have more than that 29.5% threshold eventually once you're kind of full built. But it's very important to hit that 29.5% threshold. And I'll explain why when we talk about the skills. What glancing does is it basically just has a chance. When you get hit, there is a glancing chance or a chance to glance. Right now, mine is set to 33.2%. So every time I get hit, I basically have a 1/3 chance of glancing the attack. Glancing the attack initially reduces that damage by 25%. So if the boss hits me for 10,000, I have a 33% chance to glance it, and I will only take 7,500 damage. Now, I said the initial damage reduction because there is a glancing effect attribute right here, which gives you more than 25% glancing effect. So at this current moment, I have 30%. You'll notice all of my stats are really, really low. I have literally nothing in the Inscribe Stone and like no skills, essentially, because that's kind of the point of the video. So right now I have a 30% glancing effect and a 30, let's just say 1/3 chance to glance. So if a boss hits me again for 10,000, there's a 33% chance that I will only take 7,000 damage, right? Because I have a 30% glancing effect. So you're basically reducing the damage dealt by 30%, more or less, is kind of the math there. It's not exactly like that, but to make the numbers a little bit easier, you can think of it that way. All right, so once you have your resilience at 315 and you're glancing at 29.5%, then you want to put everything you possibly can into cooldown, basically. Max out cooldown, max it, max it, max it, max it. You can hit 19% cooldown currently. You can actually hit a little bit higher, I believe. But around 19% cooldown is what you can hit currently with level 100 gear and everything that we have. And that's like including if you do, like crazy tier 3 gems and stuff like that. You're still only going to get around 19% cooldown and all of your gear and stuff like that. So put all of your points into cooldown as much as you possibly can. You want to make sure that you're above 10%. Make sure you're above 10%. From there, you then want to get your Omni percentage up to 6%. All right. However you have to do that. If it's with, if your gear gets you up to the 6%, cool. If it doesn't, you can use your Inscribe Stone to get all of these numbers up higher. Same with glancing, same with Omni. You can use the Inscribe Stone to just get these, to get your values up to these percentages that I'm talking about. All right. So what's the easiest way to do that? Well, there's a couple different ways to get all of these stats. Again, one is gear. I'm basically just going to show you guys the best gear that you can possibly get. I'll have like a screenshot up on the screen. Pretty much just follow that. But obviously that's like if you get all of the best rolls you can possibly get, right? All of the best stats. And that's not likely, at least not for a while, until you start really, really farming your Arcane Realms on repeat. By the way, quick little mention, make sure to farm your Arcane Realms on challenge mode if you can, because challenge mode clears when you have a reward chance. So for example, if I go to Arcade Realm, I have 3 out of 6 reward chances. Clear these on challenge mode because they have a chance of dropping colorful gems, which is insanely, insanely strong. So I'll just show the screenshot of the stats on the armor. Yeah, basically the reason why you want those stats in the armor is because they provide the best things that you can get basically on each one of those pieces. Not every piece can get every type of stat. Like not every piece can get cooldown. Not every piece can get glancing, etc. All right, so from there, we're going to transition into the skills, and it'll make a little bit more sense why some of these thresholded numbers, why I'm telling you to get to these certain thresholds. First things first, Divine Body. This is like such an overpowered skill. Just literally just maxes out always, all the time, period. Don't even think about it. Just do it. Similarly with Holy Hammer Plus, just straight up max this out. This skill is insanely good, insanely strong. The main reason why it's insanely strong, one, it provides more damage. Holy Hammer generally does like your 3rd highest damage. Your honestly 2nd or 3rd highest damage as a tank paladin. It goes Holy Fire, and then Flying Shield and Holy Hammer are basically very, very similar. It'll depend on your special aptitudes, but these two are very similar in damage. So for one, it increases damage. Great. Can't hurt. But also it grants you a 7.5% higher glancing chance, which is really, really big. Remember I said the threshold that you want to hit is 29.5? That is because you want to actually get to glancing 50% to increase your dodge percentage. Dodge percentage literally means if you get attacked, there's a chance that you don't take damage. So it's really, really nice. And you might be like, okay, well then why did you say 29.5 and not 50%? It's because when you have this attribute, or when you have this skill rather, check my glancing when you use Holy Hammer. So right now I'm at 33.2. I go up to 53.7. So you actually go up 20.5% if you have this thing maxed out, 3 out of 3. You go up 20.5% glancing, and you basically have that like 100% uptime because Holy Hammer is on such a low cooldown. Which means 55.7, or 53.7 rather, excuse me, is above this glancing 50% chance, which will give you this dodge increase. Like straight up, it'll give it to you. You don't need it in the pure stats. It's whatever stats are actually affected to you at that exact moment. So you will basically always have this thresholded number, which is why you need to hit that 29.5%. You really don't need to like pump super high into glancing. And we'll get into the math in a bit. All right, so with that, Holy Regen is a very good skill. Oh, I guess I'm in battle. Holy Regen is a very strong skill for tanking. It's like enormous. It's kind of your, oh shit, I have low HP. It's basically a potion. Really strong. This just makes it even stronger and just makes you a lot tankier. It's really nice. Right here also, it increases your max HP for 10 seconds. Really good. So Holy Fire Plus can be kind of flexed. You don't necessarily need Holy Fire Plus, and you certainly don't need it maxed out. So like I said, Holy Fire is going to be your highest damage, like just period. It does almost 50% of the damage. It's like 40% of your overall damage. Again, that will all depend on your special aptitudes, but it's 40 to 50% of your entire damage is going to come through Holy Fire in raids. So it is nice to get more damage. And we're going to put 3 out of 3 in here, but I'll tell you when there are certain times where you don't want that. Now, the next question is always Holy Shield Bash or Holy Sword. 90% of the time, honestly 95% of the time, you're going to be running Holy Shield Bash. It replaces Holy Sword. Holy Shield Bash is really nice when you max it out. So obviously, max it out. The alternative is if you're using Holy Sword, you can max out kind of the Holy Sword tree, right? It's the same as every specialization. There's basically two different kind of paths you can go. Holy Shield Bash just makes you a lot more tanky, and it does an AoE damage, which is really nice for mobbing, which happens all the time in basically all of the raids. Holy Sword is very useful if you are solo tanking, as in you don't have a healer, or in the instance of Archdruid Elite, sometimes the healer is just not going to be able to heal you. They're going to heal the seed or whatever. In that case, you can use Holy Sword. I traditionally will just use Holy Shield Bash because, again, of that AoE. And I can just heal myself with Holy Regen and a bunch of... Like, if you have the 8 out of 8 set, Flying Shield will heal you. So generally, when I'm in the portal in Archdruid Elite, you just pop your Inscribe Stone and just spam Flying Shield, and you're basically full health all the time. So, yep, that's that. I like to spec into this, which is basically just giving you greater heal on Holy Regen and less cooldown on it. It's really nice. The lesser cooldown is honestly really cool. It basically just gives you a free potion or like 20 seconds more. Then you want to spec into this tree or this ability right here. Every time Aegis becomes active, there is a 100% chance for you to be enhanced. This is very confusing to a lot of people, and I'll try to explain it the best I can. So your Aegis, what you build Aegis basically by this blue shield. It basically just builds over time. Like when you're in combat, it'll build. So obviously I have 0 because I'm not in combat. But if we go ahead and attack the chief here, you can see it's slowly building up, right? It's very slowly, but it's building. What happens is when this builds up all the way, also this will build up when you glance and attack. So if you're getting hit by like mobs, especially if you're getting hit by a lot of mobs, this will be building up really quick. Or if you're getting hit by the boss, it'll be building up, like if you're the main tank. When this is fully activated, and you use Flying Shield, you'll actually go into the Aegis status. So I'll get there real quick. Okay, so we have the shield fully filled out. I guess it's called Spectrum Energy. When I use, you'll see Flying Shield is like on fire. When I use Flying Shield, I will enter the Aegis status. With this talent, it increases my glancing chance and glancing effect by 20%. So you'll see my glancing chance is right here, 33.2. My glancing effect, 20 or 30, will increase my glancing chance to 53.7 with Holy Hammer. And then when I use 3, watch these two numbers right here. Goes up to, 84.7 and 50, what is that? 61% glancing effect. That's like insane. It's really big. And then obviously it goes away. What that does for you when you're in that Age of Status is you basically become invincible. It's like an 80% chance of glancing every single hit, and you're taking 61% reduced damage. Honestly, this number can go higher, by the way. Both of these numbers can go higher. So you basically just become unkillable when you have that Age of Status active. It's really, really, really nice to have. It can save your butt a bunch. So take it. It's really good. Granted, like, it's not always going to be up, but generally if you're the main tank, you'll be glancing a lot of hits, and, you know, it'll build quicker. Anyway, okay, I'm in battle again. Anyway, the next skill that you want to take is this Ardent Guardian skill. Basically, this will also increase your glancing effect. So remember I said 61%, I think, in Aegis and like 30 base. When you press Ardent Guardian, it's going to go up to, you know, 71% or higher. It's really, really, really awesome. And also you just straight up take 10% less damage. So it's like insanely good, especially if you can couple this with your Aegis status. I mean, you're literally unkillable. Generally, you don't have to do that when you have Aegis. Like, you don't need to do anything else. You're already Chad. But after the Aegis ends, then you can use Ardent Guardian, and you're pretty much invincible for a long time. This increases Ardent Guardian a lot. It's really, really strong. What this basically does, Eternal Passion, the skill right here, if you have Ardent Guardian active, so I'm going to press Ardent Guardian, then you can see here for this duration of time, if you take lethal damage, so let's say I have 1,000 HP and the boss hits me for 5,000. Normally I would die, right? If I have the Ardent Guardian up, the buff up, and I get hit, I actually don't die, and I will instead go up to 25% HP. 25% of your HP. So it's literally like a heal. It's really, really, really cool. If you pop Ardent Guardian and you don't take lethal damage in that duration, it'll actually just straight up reduce the cooldown of Ardent Guardian by 40 seconds. It's huge. You probably didn't notice, but it went from like, I don't know, 100 seconds or like 90 seconds to 50 seconds. Really nice. It's a really, really good skill. Ardent Guardian is very useful in certain raids in like specific times. Or as like, oh shit, my healer's dead, or like whatever. And then generally you'll have 2 points left. Generally you're just going to want to put it right here. This just basically makes you tankier. There's really no downside to this whatsoever. And you kind of don't really need any other abilities here. Now, remember how I said Holy Fire Plus, you can sort of flex this? The way that you do that is you can actually put 2 out of 3 points into Holy Fire Plus and an additional point into Heart of Fire. That's going to make you tankier. Generally, I don't ever really need that to be even tankier. If you have everything like built out, like we're going to explain, sorry about that, you don't really even need to be any tankier than you already are. So generally, I'll just put another point into Holy Fire. It makes the raid quicker, which basically means less mechanics, less attacks, everybody stays alive, you clear the raid more successfully. So this is normally what I run. This exact skill tree. So again, we mentioned why we want 29.5% glancing, but now we'll mention why we want 19% cooldown. It's because your core passive right here, weapon combo, if you have 19% cooldown, like in your stats, at any time, again, it doesn't have to be base, just during combat, if you have 19% cooldown, let's say there's like a cooldown potion or something, or like a fish that gives you cooldown, your cooldown on Flying Shield will be reduced by 2.5 seconds. It's really, really big. Additionally, you're already at 19% cooldown, so like the cooldown of the actual skill will be fairly low, and then you're reducing it by 2.5 seconds flat. So it'll be like 10 or 11 seconds, I don't really know, on Flying Shield. Again, Flying Shield's like your bread and butter skill, to be honest, so this is really, really, really strong. If you get to 10%, the cooldown is flat reduced by 1 second, which is why you kind of need to hit that 10%. You don't need to, obviously, but you really want to hit that 10%. 19% is like, you're pretty much perfect. But if you can hit that 10%, it's really, really good. Get that flat cooldown reduced, and use a shit ton of Flying Shields. It's really nice. Additionally, Omni, there's a core passive here, Inquisition. When your Omni is at 6%, which is what I recommended, get your Omni to 6%, you just straight up take 1% less damage. It's 1% additional damage reduction when you use Holy Hammer for 6 seconds. You basically are always using Holy Hammer within 6 seconds, so you can theoretically look at it as 1% damage reduction. Really, really strong. Yeah, it's like enormous. Now, 11.4% Omni reduces it by 2.5%. It's very, very hard to get 11.4% Omni right now. You actually like can't if you're going like full into the cooldown route, and I would generally recommend going fully into the cooldown. Cooldown is super duper super strong on honestly like every single class. For one, it just obviously lowers the cooldown of the skill, so you use more skills, but it also reduces the global cooldown of your skills. Now, global cooldown, when I use an ability, watch, there's kind of like a little clock thing before I can use the next ability. So, boom, you can see it kind of roll around. Sometimes it like looks kind of weird. I have pretty high ping on the west coast of the US, so even in NA, my pings hovers around 100, 120, even especially in a raid. So it kind of looks a little weird. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to spam, when I use Holy Hammer, I'm going to spam Holy Shield Bash, and you'll see how long it takes to actually activate. So you can see it's like, honestly, like it feels like almost a full second before I can use the next skill. That time right there, that downtime, reduces your actions per minute, your APM, which heavily, heavily, heavily reduces not only your tankiness, but also your DPS. Now, DPS is important for a tank. You're not going to hit like 5,000 DPS or anything, but the more DPS you can do as a tank, the better. So having your global cooldown reduced will allow you to use more skills, more quick. You'll have a higher APM, higher DPS. You'll be a better tank. So cooldown, 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 cooldown. Okay, so now let's talk about the Inscribe Stone, and this is really going to depend on your gear, your stats, and everything in between. If you've already hit some of these like breakpoints, like the glancing breakpoint, which you should have already hit if you have good gear, you actually don't need to be speccing points into glancing. And this is a big difference from what I see a lot, pretty much all tank paladins doing, is they're putting a bunch of points into glancing. You don't need that if you're already hit that breakpoint. It's not actually the strongest mitigation that you can get. So for everybody, I think it's like level 29 or something. You'll be able to put in all of the points that I'm showing here. Whoops, I actually screwed that up. So just put all your points into stamina. You want to reach these side nodes here. Great. I usually just put 2 into focus. You can skip this one to gain an additional point, but you definitely need one of them to get the emblem. I get both of these resonance nodes, and then there you go. So at level 23, apparently, you can kind of be at this point. Now, you can entirely skip this right side if you're really, really low on points. It is an option. You'll save like 6 points. So this is what I mean. Just to show, just in case somebody new is watching. So at 18 points, you can actually get like all of this. But pretty much, honestly, like if you only have 18 points, just go get more Inscribe Stone. Yeah. So this is kind of your base, your sort of default. Right here, level 25 is kind of your base. What you then want to do is max out cooldown. Just straight up max it, max it, max it. Yummy, yummy. Okay, great. I'll even get rid of one of these points. So at 32, you kind of have like room to now play around with things, and depending on your stats and things like that. So again, you should already be above that 29.5% glancing, but if you're not, you can put points into your glancing. Make sure to put 1 point into everything first. You get the biggest benefit. As you put in 2 and 3, it's actually 50% worse than the initial node. So it's just so much better to put 1 into everything than 3 into here. All right, so now we can actually play around. If you have like these decent stats already, like I mentioned, like a high enough glancing percentage and whatever, your best, your tankiest thing that you can now do at this point is actually put 1 point into every one of the stamina nodes. You do have to get this glancing, which is not a bad thing. Glancing is good, it's just not the best. To get all of these stamina nodes here off to the sides and above. So right now, you're kind of at like your tankiest for basically everybody. At this point, generally speaking, unless you have like giga high glancing for some reason, maybe you have like a bunch of gems, or I don't even know what's going on, but you have incredibly high glancing, you'll actually want to put 2 points into each of your stamina nodes. So that will make you the tankiest. Putting 2 points in. I know, I just said putting 1 point in is so much better, but for whatever reason, putting 2 points into stamina, getting that extra HP, is proving to be the tankiest route you can take. If you have really, really high glancing, you can put 1 point into specialization effect, into each of these 3 specialization effects. You'll already have these 2 down here. So you can just put it into these 3. It's a good option. And then you can put in 2 stamina, or you can just put in 2 stamina and then the specialization effect. It doesn't really matter. At this point, things kind of really, really, really depend. So I'm going to play around. I'm going to show you guys some of the emblems and kind of show you what needs to happen, because you're not always going to be like, you're not going to have the perfect stats all the time, generally. So let's put in our emblems here, and let's talk about the emblems. Generally, for Tank Paladin, you're going to be running these 3 general emblems: Intertwined Fates, High Energy Potion, and Tribal Ode. Tanking, unfortunately, the survival emblems are pretty bad. There are 4 of them. They're all fairly bad. The best ones are Reversal and Potential. The other 2 are pretty shnikes. So honestly, just don't really run them. It's not really worth it. I would just run these general ones instead. So Intertwined Fates just gives you more damage and more defense. It's really good. Whoops. I put that here. Depending on your additional effects, you'll really want emblems that have good additional effects before the kind of good ones, right? So what you really, really need is 2 emblems that have upper left attributes. If you can get it on the good ones, great. So like I have a high energy potion with upper left and lower right, which is nice because I also get this resonance node here. But you really, really need upper lefts. I would honestly go as far as to say, like, use a shittier stone or a crappier emblem to get an upper left. It's worth it. I also have an upper right for additional Omni, and this is where things come into play, right? So use all 3 of these. Because I said the survival ones are pretty lame for the most part, I actually use damage emblems basically all the time. So I have a really, really strong out of control emblem. It's emblem level, skill level +2, so it's actually 12 out of 10, giving me a significant amount of damage. But it also has upper left and lower right, which gives me more cooldown and more stamina. And this is really, really good. You need the upper lefts, like I'm mentioning. Then I don't actually have a great upper right damage emblem, so I do use my survival upper right. It's also technically a level 9 out of 10 with the amount of HP that you get, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. So you can use the survival ones when you're progging. They're not that useful. I use this one because it has the upper right. If I had one with, a damage one in particular, like Sprawl is pretty much your second best damage one. If I had a Sprawl with upper right and upper left, or upper right and lower left, yeah, I would definitely use that over over Reversal. I'm just using Reversal for the upper right node, to be honest. All right, so this changes things, right? Having these extra attributes changes things. For me in particular, because I need to hit that 6% Omni, I have to basically spec in points into these Omni nodes to get there. So now I'm at 6.1%, I'm above that threshold, and I'm already at level 45, right? If you need to hit this threshold first, get rid of some of these additional stamina points there, and you can spec furthermore into Omni, all right? Pretty important to get that 6% Omni. It's a significant damage reduction doing so. Okay, so from here, again, if you aren't at that 6% yet, you got to spec in more points to get to that 6%. That's just how it is. It'll fully depend on your gear. I have too much Omni on my gear, just because of the rolls that I've gotten. So I don't have to spec as many points in, but probably you're going to have to spec all 3 points into all of these stamina nodes. And it's actually not a bad thing. Into these Omni nodes. Omni gives you decent damage mitigation. It's not a terrible effect. It's not a terrible attribute to have. A lot of people seem to steer clear from Omni because Omni kind of sucks on DPSs, or not sucks, but it's just lower on the tier list for DPSs. But it's a really good node for tanks. So you might have to put in 3 nodes into each of these Omnis. And let's see how many levels that is. So that's at 48. You'll have all of the stamina nodes, all of the Omni nodes, all of the cooldown nodes, and none of the glancing nodes. So this is kind of like your optimal build. Since I have a little bit too much Omni in my gear, unfortunately, it's not a good thing. It's an unfortunate thing, but it does mean I can spec it out from the Inscribe Stone. So now the best thing that you can be doing from here is actually increasing your stamina points to 2 out of 3. Each stamina point to 2 out of 3. Since I have a 50%er, I can actually just put this to 3 out of 3. But you know, sucks to not have this one, I guess. So this is what I run. If you put 2 points into each of your stamina nodes, you're going to be as tanky as humanly possible at this point in the game, right? If you have incredibly high glancing chance, for whatever reason you really like glancing, that's fine. This is like super min-maxed stuff. If you have really high glancing, you can actually, instead of putting 2 points into each of your stamina nodes, you put 1 point into each of these specialization effect nodes first, okay? So for me, I have a specialization effect with plus 50, so my first point into the specialization effect plus 50 is actually going to be better than a plus 2 on a non-attributed stamina node, all right? So again, super deep math there. It doesn't really matter. You're literally min-maxing like 1 effective HP, but hey, I mean, that's kind of the point of the in-depth video, is to super min-max, right? So for me, this is my optimal tanky, super tanky tank boy 9000 tanker extreme master 55. I have 29.5, well, I actually have more glancing, 6% omni, 10% or more cooldown, 315% resilience, decent glancing effect, 32.2%, super duper tanky. I'm also increasing resonance. So from here, you can honestly like do whatever the hell you want. Like I said, the tankiest is to put in 2 points into each of your stamina, so that'll get you to around like level 60 Inscribe Stone. Then put 1 point into each of the specialization effects if you already haven't. So yeah, I mean, you're pretty golden at that point. From there, let's say you're like level 60 plus or whatever, you're watching this video a little bit later, you have 3 points into all of your stamina, 1 point, 3 points into all your cooldown, 3 points into all your omni, 1 point into each of your specialization effect. Then you can put in 1 point into each of the glancing nodes. All right, that'll get you super duper tanky. From there, you actually want to then put 1 point into each focus node. Okay, but at this point, it like doesn't really matter. You're pretty much just putting 1 point into everything, and you know you're already the Demon King. All right. So with all of that said, I highly recommend you just basically follow this for tankiness. Follow what I said. If you don't want to, for whatever reason, that's totally fine. People are going to be talking about the cores. What about the cores? What about the cores? The cores are way too expensive, and they don't give you enough for what you get. They just straight up don't give you enough for what you get. For example, this core right here gives you... Okay, well, whatever. It gives you glancing effect 4.5%, which is actually not bad, but it's basically getting like 3 of these perked up is the same as doing that, and you're not really wasting your points getting this core. So just keep that in mind. If you're like really pumping for it, you might not want to do that. But it's honestly fine, like whatever. If you have a shit ton of points, go for it. The middle node here is bad. I just wouldn't get this really at all. Yeah. And then the top node here, a lot of people get the top node. Or I see a lot of people running the top node. It's not that good. I know you get that 12.5% Inscribe Stone energy, which increases like your Inscribe Stone skill, how often you can use your Inscribe Stone skill. But it's a percentage chance when you obtain Fortuna Echo, which basically just happens throughout combat. And we've seen that Resonance actually just builds Inscribe Stone faster or kind of at the same rate. and you're not wasting a bunch of points trying to increase this core. Because you kind of already have to be in these resonance nodes already. So actually just like leveling these up, especially if you have the 50%, is going to be better than this core node. But eventually you'll definitely want to get the core node. Pretty much at like level 60. When you're level 60, you have all 3. You have 3 in cooldown, 3 in Omni, 3 in all your stamina points. Then you can actually get this core here, or like 1 in all your specialization effects. You can actually get this core here. It's not going to be bad, and you know, you can have a blast. So that's going to do it, guys, for the Inscribe Stone stuff. Hopefully it makes sense with the emblems. Like I said, you can actually spec in your damage emblems if you have them. It's totally fine. We talked about the talents. We talked about the stats. I didn't talk about rotations or anything like that, or in actual raid. If you want help with that, definitely let me know, and I'll help you out with the rotations. It's fairly simple, and actually, let's just cover the rotation really, really quickly. Kind of your default rotation. For tanks, it really does depend on what's happening in the battle. But against your dummy, basically all you have to do, Holy Fire does all of your damage pretty much. Or not all of it, but 40 to 50% of your damage. So you want to basically just pop your Holy Fire. You want to have Holy Hammer up at all times because it increases your glancing chance. So have Holy Fire up at all time. Have Holy Hammer, like whenever it's off cooldown, just use Holy Hammer. And then you can basically just use Flying Shield and Holy Shield Bash whenever you're off cooldown. So pretty neat stuff there. Nothing really to worry about. You're basically just using these 4 skills. It's really simple. When you need like a potion or need to heal, you just pop Holy Regen. Great. When there's a big attack or the boss is doing a mechanic or something like that, or your healer's dead or something and they're getting cardiac, then you can pop Ardent Guardian. When you have your Inscribe Stone skill, what you want to do is you want to... Actually, I'll just get the Inscribe Stone still. Alright, so now I have the Inscribe Stone skill active, or ready to pop. What you basically want to do, again, you'll have your Holy Fire up. Generally, it should just kind of always be up. You're going to want to press Flying Shield, Inscribe Stone, any other ability, Flying Shield, any other ability, Flying Shield, any other ability, and then you can, depending on your ping and how fast you go, you can actually use these two. They don't have a global cooldown. So you can actually use those to then get 5 Flying Shields out during the Inscribe Stone. It's going to depend on your ping and your cooldown rate for how long your global cooldown is. But generally, you always want to get 4 Flying Shields out during your Inscribe Stone. And if you have good ping, or like, again, my ping is like, I basically at 100 all the time. If you have good ping, you can get 5 out every time you do the Inscribe Stone. So that's it for the rotation. It's really, really, really simple. Most of the time for tanking, what you're really watching out for is what the boss is doing. So you have to be the one to interrupt the boss. You have to be the ones to taunt the boss. You have to like move the boss around, kite the boss during certain things, move them to certain positions. Like the Spider Queen, for example, she does an attack called Expel, where it blasts everybody out. You need to pull the boss to the edge, to the corner of the map. You can actually fall off of the map is why you need to do this as a tank. So you need to pull it, and then when she expels, you need to go behind so that, you know, your team just doesn't get blown off. So that's like that's the majority of what a tank does. It's not really about the rotation. The rotation is so simple. It's literally like 4 buttons and you just spam it when it's off cooldown, more or less. These two are your kind of oh shit moment abilities. So there you go, guys. Hopefully it makes sense. If you have any other questions on Tank Paladin, leave them in the comments. I'll answer every single one of them, and I'll be having a lot more Terrace land guides and stuff coming out. I've been deep diving into the math side of things, really, really looking at the numbers, and you know, going from there to show kind of the analytical viewpoint of things. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what Terrace land content you want to see next. I'll probably do guides for some of the harder raids. We've cleared you know, most of the stuff. So yeah, cheers. Thanks. Peace.